Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank JG for sending this article. Suicide has been a problem in this country for many centuries. And as you can see, it mainly impacts the people that dominate everything. You know, it's amazing how a whole society is set up in their favor, and they are still committing the most suicide in it. Sound like a bunch of miserable people to me, but let's get into this article. Suicide rate increases nationally, soars in South Carolina. This is dated August 13th, 2018. Stigma, lack of services, financial crisis blamed. I don't know. You know, at this point, when you see so much of this going on, you have to wonder, you know, what is going on in the process of raising these people that they feel like they just don't measure up, or they just want to check out of here because they can't handle how life is going for them. And it never seems to decrease. I remember the suicide rate being high even when I was a child, because I remember the adults talking about it. I wasn't understanding it then, and I don't understand it now. But let's get into this article. News that the U.S. suicide rate has been soaring, including a 38% hike in South Carolina. Stunned the nation recently, but for the staff at Mental Health America in Greenville County, which operates a 24-hour suicide prevention hotline, it came as no surprise. It's not a shock to us, said Susan Hare, Director of Community Engagement and Development for the agency, because we're hearing firsthand from people affected by this. And ladies and gentlemen, do you know the average suicide hotline can't even handle the incoming calls? I found that out recently. Many of the people that call in, they're encouraged to call in. And when they call in, a lot of times calls are getting missed from someone on the other end that's suicidal, because they don't have the manpower to really cover the amounts of phone calls that come into these suicide hotlines every year. All right, so getting back to the article, the agency takes 30 to 40 calls a day, or 12,000 pleas for help a year from area residents, she said. But another 5,000 calls are missed. That's because the agency don't have the capacity to handle them all, and that's true. And that is a problem all around the country, ladies and gentlemen. The demand for services has tripled in the past 10 years, said Hare. It's heartbreaking. But again, what's going on in your society where people want to just check out of here? You know, they keep saying it's all of these issues, but why in all of these centuries and decades have these issues not been fixed? Because they can't fix it. See, you know, this country really don't do well with people that are, excuse me, this psychologically fractured. They don't do well with handling these people. They may have this expert and that expert, but it has not slowed down the suicide rate. So it tells me something is very disconnected in all of these psychological, educated people out here, and the ones that are damaged and want to commit suicide. Obviously, what you're doing is not working, and all that education you got is not helping the situation at all. Suicides is the 10th leading cause of death nationwide, and the U.S. suicide rate has increased 25% between 1999 and 2016, when nearly 45,000 suicide deaths were recorded, according to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. In South Carolina, the number of suicides per year increased from 419 to 818 during that time, according to the State Department of Health and Environmental Control. And the numbers are increasing locally as well. Do you know who has the lowest suicide in the country? Black people. We have the lowest suicide. We go through the most oppression, and we have the lowest suicide. And these folks that are not even going through racism got the highest suicide. Again, they can't fix what's broken, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what this really boils down to. In Greenville County, there were 51 suicides in 1999 and 92 last year, according to the county coroner's office. The Anderson County coroner reported 29 suicides in 2000 and 44 in 2016, with a high of 54 in 2015. In Pickens County has seen a steady increase from 12 in 1999 to 27 in 2017, with a peak of 35 in 2016. Coroner Candy Kelly said, persistent stigma. Experts say there are many reasons for the increase. One of the main problems is that people contemplating suicide often don't seek help because of the stigma, said Kathy Eckert, director of crisis intervention at Mental Health America. Society tells them they should pull themselves up by the bootstraps, but who came up with that saying? Who came up with that saying, pull yourself up by the bootstrap? And you know what the irony is? The people that say that didn't even pull themselves up by the bootstraps. They got all kinds of free goodies when they came to America. So they didn't even pull themselves up by the, and they heavily depended on slavery to even get this society to where it is. They didn't even pull themselves up by the bootstraps, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that saying did not come from us. That they have nothing to feel bad about, so they are embarrassed about feeling the way they do, she said. So what they're trying to do is tell these people that are already fractured how they should feel. Isn't that what they do to everybody? Always trying to tell you how you should feel. You know, maybe if you let these people tell you what's going on with them, then maybe you could figure out what's going wrong and you can fix it. But no, some of us are ego tripping so much, you want to tell other people how they should feel. Unbelievable. Well, if they don't get it, ladies and gentlemen, they never will. I can imagine people telling Kate Spade, what do you have to feel bad about? I don't understand the purpose in even saying that line to somebody. What do you have to feel bad? Why would you even say that to a person? You know, what you're doing to me, saying this, what do you have to feel bad about? That's telling them to suppress their feelings. How is that? Never mind. Let me not go too deep with that. Moving on. The point is they do. So the point of the matter is, no matter how much you say that line to somebody, they do feel bad. There is something within themselves that don't feel right. And you are trying to suppress their feelings by saying that to them. So, to be honest with you, if somebody came to me and I was not feeling good at that time, and you say to me, what do you have to feel bad about? Why would I talk to you? Seriously, why would I talk to you? And here in the Bible Belt, staffers often hear the phrase, too blessed to be depressed. So in other words, don't tell me about your problems because you are blessed. You ain't supposed to have problems. That's what that line is really saying. I don't see how this is helpful to a person that's suicidal. That's all I'm saying. I don't see how these phrases you came up with is of any use to a person that feels so bad that they want to check out of here. I mean, never mind. Diving too deep again. Let me move in. Which adds another layer of guilt, said Hare. You never say that about diabetes or cancer, but you can't really compare a disease like diabetes and cancer to suicide. People did not make a conscious decision to have diabetes or cancer, but you did have that when it came down to suicide. So I don't think she made a very good comparison there. Out of the darkness, there is so much stigma around mental illness, suicide, even accessing care. And we haven't done much to change it. Members of the military and police officers, and by the way, police officers have a very high rate of suicide. And this is something that's not spoken about in this country at all. And I already knew about the military, but police officers also have a terrible, terrible high rate of suicide, who are at higher risk of suicide because of trauma or social factors are particularly affected, so they don't get help, she said. I don't think that's the case. Now, with the military, I can understand, especially if they've been in wars, that does psychologically mess you up. In the case of these cops, many of these cops were also in the military. Not all of them, though. Not all of them. Some of these cops already came on police forces as damaged goods before they even got there. Many of them did. One of the best ways to combat stigma is to bring mental illness and suicide out of the darkness and talk about it like any other disease, said Dr. Karen Lamel, Chief Medical Officer for Behavioral Health and Greenville Health System. You know what it sounds like to me, y'all? These people are, in what a lot of people say now, in that sunken place. I don't say that phrase, but a lot of you do. And they really never mastered how to deal with these people. And I don't think it's as complicated as you think. But why should I give that kind of information to them? So I won't. We need to start talking and making an everyday part of our discussion about mental illness, she said. And don't place judgment. Loss and pain, the Great Recession, which occurred during the CDC study time frame, is another reason for the jump. Historically, whenever there's a financial crisis, there are spikes, she said. And we did have one for several years. And that's because you don't know how to run your society. You know, people that are running it are hoarding things and stealing and not really taking care of the society as a whole. That's why every single decade there's some type of financial crisis going on in this country. They haven't gone through a decade without it. You know, you can't say you know how to run things and you're always in a financial hole every decade that comes around. And you can even see this going all the way back to the 1700s to today. There's always some financial turmoil going on in America. So again, you can't walk around here saying you are the best suited to run things and you haven't gotten through one decade without some kind of financial downfall going on in the country. Okay. Family isolation, social factors like bullying, a crisis such as the loss of a spouse having an affair also contribute to the suicide rate. She said, also a high risk of people with chronic pain, HIV, and sleep disorders, she said. See, I'm not buying that, y'all. You know, we go through all of those things, as far as I'm concerned, and far more amplified. And again, how is it that Black people don't commit that much suicide, but they have all the advantages and can get help a lot more readily out here than anyone else, but they're committing more suicide? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I will leave the link to this article in the description box. You know, what they need to do is figure out the disconnect in how they treat people with suicide and the suicide victim and what they're going through, and allowing them to express themselves instead of trying to suppress them and tell them how they need to feel. But it is not up to me to fix what's wrong. It's up to them. This is their society, and this is the way they chose to set it up. So if their people are checking out of here, it's up to them to fix it. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I will see you on the next video. Peace, family.